today I wanted to talk about slash chords. I have positioned the camera over my keys so that I can demonstrate these. These are very confusing to people, and I hope that today I can clarify things for you a little bit. So we're going to start off with one that's a little bit more straightforward, C/E. So first I want to remind you that whatever letter you see to the left of the slash, that is the chord that we're playing. So to the left of the slash is a C. That means it's some kind of a C chord. Okay, that's the biggest part that we have to remember, because sometimes you'll think, well, is it an E chord or is it a C chord? But always the letter that comes first to the left of the slash, that's the chord that we're working with. So when we have a chord like C/E, first thing you're going to do is you're going to think about what's in a C chord. And in this case, we're just talking about triads, so I'm not going to talk too much about sevenths right now. We're just going to talk about triads. So we've got a C chord, but to the right of the slash, it says E. So everything that's to the right of the slash means this is what is to be at the bottom of the chord, or to the left of the chord. Bottom is always to the left. So this is a C chord. E is supposed to be at the bottom. So if I know that this note is supposed to be at the bottom of the C chord, I will take my C and put it up here on the top. Okay, you can see it sounds almost the same. It has a little bit of a different characteristic, but basically it's the same chord, just in a different order. So I took the C chord and I did what we call an inversion. I took the bottom note, put it on the top, and this is called the first inversion. You don't necessarily have to know that in order to read the slash chords, but I'm just letting you know anyway. First inversion means bottom note comes to the top once. Okay, first inversion, bottom note comes to the top once. All right, so now we've got a C chord with E at the bottom. Now let's look at the next one. It's D flat chord with A flat at the bottom. So once again, to the left of the slash is a D flat, so it's a D flat chord. But this time it says it's an A flat on the bottom. So we've got the A flat on the top. So we have two ways that we can think of this. We can either invert it twice, which means bring the bottom note to the top once, and then bring the bottom note, which now is an F, to the top twice. Okay, so now we inverted it twice. We had a D flat chord, brought the bottom note to the top, brought the bottom note to the top again, and now we've got a second inversion of a D flat chord. So it's a D flat chord and A flats at the bottom. But an easier way to think about this, if it's a second inversion, meaning that the note that's on top of the triad, the fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the fifth, that's the third, and that's the root, or the 1. So if it's a second inversion, meaning the fifth is at the bottom, you can also just take the top note, put it on the bottom. That is if it sounds good. If it's too low, then you might want to bring it, you might want to do the two inversions that way. But if it sounds good, just bring that note to the bottom. All right, so if the fifth is on the bottom, like the A flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can bring that to the bottom. If the third is on the bottom, in this case the E, 1, 2, 3, E is the third note of a C scale. If that's on the bottom, then you might as well just take the bottom note, bring it to the top. But in some cases, you might want to bring your chord down an octave or up an octave. You can just see how it sounds. And then when you decide whether you're going to play it here or here, maybe make a note in your music or something so that you consistently know, go up for this one or go down for this one. Okay, let's try one more. Let's try an F sharp triad. Okay, so this we know is an F sharp major triad because it says F sharp to the left of the slash. To the right of the slash tells us that an A sharp is at the bottom. So since that's the third, 1, 2, 3, we can just bring the bottom one to the top. That's the first inversion of an F sharp chord. Now that might run into our melody if we're playing the melody, not singing it. So we might want to take that chord and just bring it down there. So you've got an F sharp major, and then you're going to have the A sharp at the bottom. So I'm going to bring that F sharp from the bottom to the top. Okay, hopefully that part made sense. The second tier that I have here are a little bit more confusing. Now, most of the time you will see that your slash chords have a note to the right of the slash that's in the chord. That's a simple note from the chord. So C over E, the E is just the third, etc. And D flat over A flat, the A flat is just the fifth. So those are simple. It gets a little bit more complicated when the notes to the right of the slash don't appear to be in the chord. They're just different notes that are not so characteristic of the chord. So now we've got a G slash F. Okay, so remembering that the letter that's to the left of the slash, that's the name of the chord. So we're going to think G chord. And the note or the letter that's to the right of the slash, in this case, is an F. So they want F at the bottom of the chord. All right, so we don't think necessarily of F as being part of a G chord. It is. It's actually the seventh, or we might call it the dominant seventh, but you don't even have to know that. The point is they want it at the bottom. Okay, so we can take the G chord and just add it to the bottom. Now that might sound a little muddy down there, so let's try it up an octave here. And then we're adding an F because F will be at the bottom of the chord. So you've probably heard this in a song before. Sometimes it goes like this. Something like that. So it may sound a little weird at first, but in the context of a song, it'll sound great. Okay, so that's how we do that. And let's try this one here. This one's a little confusing because we've got an E flat chord. Remember the letter that's to the left of the slash, that is the chord we're working with, so it's an E flat chord. And they want an F on the bottom. Okay, but F is sort of in the middle, so what are we going to do? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to play that F on the bottom. Then we're thinking, here's the E flat chord. Now I can still play this E flat chord. If I bring this E flat to the top of the chord, then I can have an E flat chord, and this happens to be the first inversion, with an F on the bottom. Okay, and the reason why we do that is because the chord says to the right of the slash an F, and that means this is the note that we want at the bottom. So I'm putting the F on the bottom, and the other three notes of the E flat chord, E flat, G, B flat, I'm just going to change the order, put the E flat on the top so that that F can be at the bottom. Okay. And let's try another one. This is a D chord slash C sharp at the bottom. So we've got a D chord, and they want a C sharp on the bottom. Okay, might sound pretty horrible to you, but in the context of the song, that's how it may be playing out. It may keep moving down, down. So we call that a descending bass line. And slash chords are often used to give us that sound of the descending bass line, the bottom note that keeps going down. Okay, I wanted to tell you also that you have some other choices here. You can divide these chords up between two hands. Let's say if you're singing the melody, then you don't necessarily have to have these notes of the chord all clustered together like this. You might spread them out between two hands. So on the C/E, you could just put an E in the left hand, maybe even octaves, and put the rest of the C chord in your right hand, if you're singing it, let's say. And for the D flat/A flat, okay, we want A flat at the bottom of the chord. So I'm playing a D flat triad in my right hand and A flats on the bottom. Similarly with F sharp over A sharp, I can put the F sharp on my right hand, the A sharp in the bass, and let's say the G chord with an F at the bottom. So that sounds great, but what if you're playing a melody? If you're playing a melody, what you can do is maybe take one or two elements of the chord. So let's say we've got an E flat chord over an F. Okay, let's say our melody is here. Now I can take two elements from the E flat chord, put them below this melody, okay, and let's say we've got the D chord over C sharp. Okay, so maybe I would take a couple of elements of that D chord. Let's say my melody is here. Okay, so I could do, but I can take a couple of elements from the D chord, let's say F sharp and A. Etc. That's a more advanced skill, being able to take a couple of notes from a chord, from the triad, the G, the E flat, the C, D flat, F sharp, D, take a couple of notes from that, put it in your right hand underneath the melody. That's a little bit more advanced, something to work up towards. But anyway, for right now, you understand that a C/E is this, a D flat/A flat is this, A flat on the bottom, an F sharp/A sharp, remember, is an F sharp chord with A sharp at the bottom, here or here. A G/F is a G chord with F at the bottom. An E flat/F means we're going to play an E flat chord and F is going to be at the bottom, so we'll take that E flat chord, put the bottom note somewhere else, in this case on the top, and then make sure that the F is on the bottom. Or in the case of the D/C sharp, we can easily put that at the bottom, or we can divide it between two hands. So leave me a question at the bottom if something wasn't clear. I can always have a follow-up to this lesson. Give me your comments, give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks so much for watching, and good luck with your slash chords. Bye.